Greetings, loyal subjects of the Imperium of Man. I am Librarian Elias of the Adeptus Astartes. I am creating a series of recordings with the intent of educating the general populace of the dangers of the galaxy. All of this information comes from the Lexicanum provided to me by the Adeptus Mechanicus. I will be reading verbatim from their archives. This recording will cover one of the many foes the Imperium has, the trickster Catan known as the Deceiver. Mephedran, the Deceiver, is a Catan, a living god of the Necrons that survives as fragmented shards. The Deceiver, as its name implies, enjoys using trickery, deception, and lies to its own ends. The other Catan quickly learned to distrust and shun the Deceiver, and its nature was shown particularly when the Deceiver tricked the Necron tier into giving up their bodies in favor of metallic husks. When the Necron tier first encountered the Deceiver, they gave it the name Mephedran, the messenger, and hoped it would be able to bridge the gap between Necron tier and Catan. The Deceiver was the one to steer the Necron tier towards a war with the Old Ones by using its words to instill hatred of their power and ageless wisdom. Eventually, this led to the transformation of the Necron tier into the Necrons, which in turn led to the next major incident in the history of the Catan. One of three possibilities says that the Deceiver was the first to set the Catan against Catan, convincing them that each other was the best of all feasts. Despite this, the Deceiver remained to be one of the physically weakest Catan, and only survived by avoiding the more violent Catan, such as the Nightbringer and Void Dragon. The Deceiver's same deviousness proved to be its undoing. Word spread of its manipulations, and its reputation became tarnished. During the Necron Revolt, led by Zarek, the Deceiver was beset by singing spheres unleashed by its servants that rotted apart into shards. The remaining shards of the Deceiver believed themselves to be in control, fighting alongside the Necrons in order to manipulate them. The Deceiver, despite being the physically weakest Catan, was the last of the Catan to descend into its stasis tomb, but the first to leave, and it has had millennia to gather support. It has destroyed, through its subtle methods, the Blackstone fortresses, the only weapons capable of destroying the Catan, and placed the remains far out of reach of the Eldar. It is said that it provoked the Gothic War simply to destroy or remove the fortresses. In an article by Farsia Mechu of Ulthway, makes a brief prediction of the future of how the Deceiver will blur the sight of the younger races, and mankind will make them believe that they are coming home, when in fact they are walking into the Necron soul forges. In relation to this, a translation of an Eldar artifact tells the signs of the return of the Catan. It has one line dedicated to the Deceiver, and the Jackal God shall turn brother against brother. Another text mentions the attempt by a Calidus assassin to assassinate a planetary governor. The assassin used her Catan phase knife and attempted to kill the governor, but she failed, and her weapon passed straight through them. The governor then knocked the assassin aside and took their weapon and absorbed it into his hand. Other texts indicate that the Deceiver had contact with an alien race known as the Sylvae. The Sylvae were an agrarian society with little technology. They were visited by the Deceiver early in the development, and it convinced them to worship it. The Deceiver returned occasionally to reinforce the devotion, and they quickly became a superstitious people. The Sylvae were then introduced to the Imperium, and they soon turned to violence. The Deceiver did not show up to help them. Instead, it was dismayed to find them slipping back into barbarism. The Deceiver then sent in a Necron force to wipe out all of the Sylvae. with only a few surviving the near extinction of their race, but there's insufficient genetic variation in these remaining members to perpetuate the species. The Deceiver was also responsible during the fall of Cadia. A powerful shard of itself managed to assume the identity of the Primarch Omegon and to trick the scattered warbands of the Alpha Legion to follow its orders. The Catan took shelter in a nearby former Necrontier world in an uncharted area at the center of the galaxy. The world had a vast cave system and was riddled with Necron pylons. The Deceiver aimed at using the Alpha Legion to create more pylons to close the cicatrix maledictum and to trick humanity into using the soul forges as the Necrontier did before. However, the Alpha Legion Chaos Space Marine Occam, the Untrue, revealed the identity of the Catan and engaged him in a battle with forces of Alpha Legion and Wordbearers possessed Space Marines. Finally, Occam used a Tesseract Labyrinth to imprison the Catan Shard. The Alpha Legion soldier now plans to question the Deceiver about what he knows regarding the current whereabouts of Omegon. And finally, another shard of the Deceiver endured on the world of Serenade, a former Necron tomb world, and now Imperial world. However, it is currently a dead world. The Deceiver hid here, having long since possessed the body of the famed Necron, Nepreth. The Deceiver weaved a tale of Nephreth's immunity to the Necrontier's diseases and defying biotransference. However, in truth, the Deceiver possessed Nephreth's body as a child and used him as a form of controlled opposition to draw out foes of the Catan. This shard was eventually imprisoned beneath Serenade, but by controlling some of the Amunos dynasty via proxies, such as the Cryptek Vishani, the Deceiver was able to keep the legend alive in hopes a treasure hunter of Nephreth's tomb could set him free. Trazen the Infinite and Orican the Diviner were both manipulated into freeing the shards of the Deceiver, which was amongst the most powerful yet encountered and consisted of 5 to 6 individual shards. Trazen was able to transform Orican into a being of pure light to defeat the Deceiver, and the remains were imprisoned on Trazen's world of Solemnes. Trazen the Infinite has now begun to trade energy for information from the Deceiver on how to enter the Great Rift. During its peak, the Deceiver was known by various names, by various different cultures. The Eldar gave the Deceiver the name the Jackal God, Artemora to the Jakero, a technologically advanced ape-like alien race, Sathsarian to the initiates of the Gethvar, Mohag to the Korke, and Haramak to the Vinici travelers. This concludes the information regarding the Deceiver. More in-depth information regarding it will be recorded at a later date. This is Librarian Elias, signing